Hey, everybody, this is Tom Sega from Duluth Pack, and this is Leader of the Pack. Today's special guest, and boy, we're going to have some fun here, is Matt Baumgartner, the president of the Duluth Area Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks, Tom, so much for having me. I've been a long time supporter and fan of yours from our days in Canal Park together and appreciate all that you and yours do in this community. So really, it's an honor to be here today and I'm humbled. And I've got to note that I'm 100 days into this position now. And you're one of the first people who hasn't introduced me as Matt Baumgartner, the new chamber president. And so the fact that you got rid of the new on the front end of that, I greatly appreciate.
Yeah, I'm going to ask some questions about some of that. We won't call it new, but we'll call it a big set of shoes that you have to fill, which you and I've discussed at previous engagements. And you know that, and you knew that getting in. But before we get to all of that and your new role as the big dog at the Duluth Area Chamber of Commerce, what we want to do, Matt, is we want to learn a little bit about you, the person. And what does it take to actually get you to a position that you're in? So, Matt, let's just go way, way back and you tell us about you. Where are you from? Where did you go to high school? Where did you go to college? And what did you major in and why?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that because a lot of those elements I feel like are what led me to this point. It really feels like the amalgamation of a lot of things that have happened in my life. So I'm a born and raised Duluthian. Grew up in the Chester Bowl neighborhood. Yeah, amen. And both of my parents are from the Iron Range. And my dad's side was involved in mining, and a lot of them worked at EVTAC. My mom's side owned a lot of businesses up on the Iron Range. And they ended up moving to Duluth after grad school. They both went to Carleton College and they went away for grad school and moved to Duluth. And that's where I was born and raised. My dad has worked at St. Luke's for 40 years, and my mom's worked for the city of Duluth for nearly 40 years. And so, you'll see some of these elements that kind of build into me getting into the chamber. Certainly, understanding the regional components and the regional hub that Duluth can be and the importance of the Iron Range and the iron that we ship out of our port. Those are all big parts of what we are as an economic region. I am married to Amanda, wonderful woman, and have two children. Amanda is a therapist, and she had worked at Northwood Children's Services for nearly a decade, and now she just is going to be starting a job for Essentia Health at Amber Wing. And so she does incredibly important work here in the area. I'm one of five kids. I have an identical twin brother. So if you ever are in the downtown area, and you happen to see somebody who looks like me, but I'm not saying hi, I'm giving you the cold shoulder, it's not because I'm having a bad day or that I'm mad at you. It's probably my identical twin. He works for Esterbrook accounting firm downtown. I have a younger sister who works as a school counselor in the Twin Cities, another brother who works as an accountant for the Kohler Automotive Group here in town. And then my youngest sister just completed her LSAT, and she's making the next plans for her life.
Wow.
I went to Holy Rosary Grade School, now Stella Maris, and I went there from K through 8. So I spent 9 years there. Then I went to Duluth Central, class of '02. I loved my time at Duluth Central. I really, really loved it. I regret that we don't have homecoming games and things like that to go back to because it was a wonderful experience in my life. Went to St. John's University.
Up on the hill.
Yeah. Beautiful views. It's unbelievable.
Oh.
I'm excited about what the new owner of some of the parcels up there is planning to do. I think that's really exciting, long overdue. I won't go back and lament or litigate any of the previous decisions there. I'm happy that somebody's going to be moving into that space.
That is great.
Because you're right, it's a beautiful space. Went to St. John's University and then Excelsior College, where I just finished my Master of Business Administration. And so my education, both at the undergraduate and graduate level, was in business. The specialty, the concentration for my MBA was accounting. And so, how did I think that this would play out for me? I thought that I might end up in the corporate business world in some sort of leadership role was the hope, maybe on the finance side of things. And so all of that has kind of led up to being here. In my professional side of things, I spent the last 14 and a half years working for Grandma's Restaurant Company in business. So was able to balance kind of the education side of things with the real world applied experience, which I think is so critical for anybody who's gonna to lead a chamber, especially one of our size, to actually understand what those businesses go through on a day-to-day basis. And part of that learning experience was hearing from folks like you over the years down with the Canal Park Business Association, and just understanding what people go through and the risks they have to take in order to be in business. So
yeah, you were very instrumental and very involved in the Canal Park Business Association when you were with Grandma's. And boy, that, if you're going to learn some business, the restauranting business is definitely a place, because it can be feast or famine. And holy cow, through COVID, I really feel for anyone that's in the restaurant business, because it's been a long 2 years, which probably seems like 20 years to most restaurateurs, and it continues with just staffing and seeing the doors that hey, we can't staff enough, so we need to be closed on Monday and Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever day it might be. So pretty tough deal, and I'm assuming you learned a lot of the business side when you were with Grandma's.
Oh, I learned so much and had so many great mentors there. I want to touch on your point though with the pandemic, because there's some really interesting things that happened there. When the pandemic first took hold, March of 2020, we in the restaurant industry and even in the hotel side of things that we had our hands in had no idea what to expect. We didn't know if restaurants would ever exist again, and if they did, in what shape, where would consumer demand be? And as the pandemic went on, what we saw is it actually, I think, increased people's, pun intended here, appetite to be able to be in things like restaurants and socialize and be around each other. And so on the other side of it, there's been this huge demand for that experience economy, for restaurants, for breweries and things like that. So the demand is there. But to your point, the labor supply is not there. And so unfortunately for these businesses that have tiptoed and trapezed through the pandemic, now they're trying to do things like figure out what hours do we need to be open to maximize our profitability, because we don't have the staff to be open for our normal hours. And these are businesses that in an area like Duluth, they don't cash flow for 3/4 of the year. They have their little window to cash flow. And that makes the rest of it worthwhile. And to not be able to be open for your full hours is really tricky. The silver lining to all of that is you really have seen the entrepreneurial spirit and the creativity and the work ethic that goes into being in business like that, because everybody has gotten their hands dirty, so to speak, and gotten involved in different things, including one of my mentors, who's now the owner of Grandma's Restaurant Company, Andy Borg. He would be at events this summer and working in the restaurants, helping out anywhere he could. And so to the point about the experience at Grandma's, to be able to learn from people like Andy, from people like Brian Doherty, has been absolutely outstanding. And it's one thing to be able to manage a business, or in this case, a restaurant operation that is growing in revenues. That is fun and that's exciting. And those are fun financial statements to look at. But it's much more difficult to manage when those revenues stagnate and you continue to see your expenses grow. And that's a big learning experience there, which I don't necessarily wish on anybody, because it means your revenues aren't growing. But what an experience to be able to go through and understand and find ways to sharpen the pencil, yet still provide a great experience to customers. So,
the old statement of what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And I think a lot of us can really grasp into that after going through. It doesn't matter what business, what industry you're in of any type. You're talking about restauranting, but I don't think it matters what you're in, going through what this whole world and our country and our state and our city has gone through. And I know you're more tied in with the local economy here, but you also are a bigger picture with your role now. Everyone has had to do what you just said, like with Andy, just roll your sleeves up and do what it takes to get it done. And that's what entrepreneurs actually do. We just dig in like that. So you are 100% correct there, Matt. So let's talk about your position, because you lead a large Chamber of Commerce. And, Duluth, Minnesota is not the biggest city in the world, but I think that the Chamber of Commerce, the number of businesses that partake, the number of people per business that partake is pretty off the charts compared to a lot of communities the same size and a lot of larger communities. You just had your annual gala go on here a week or so ago, and unfortunately I was out of town. I wasn't able to be there, but I know a bunch of our staff was, and everyone was very happy to see that the numbers were huge again. I mean, we're talking 1,200 people from a small community at your gala. So let's talk about your current position. That's the kind of the big enchilada of the year, but there's a lot of other things that go into this that are going to challenge you in your role, challenge your staff, challenge the chamber as a whole as we come out of this pandemic, because you are really a voice and a set of eyes and a cheerleader for all of us, the businesses. So let's talk about a couple of those things. First of all, what are some of the steps that took you? I want to get back to you and your role before we get to the chamber as a whole.
Sure.
In getting the successes you've had into getting your new role, because I'll say it, you had a very large set of shoes to fill. Somebody who's been in that role for many years. You knew that individual, David Ross, as everyone who's involved in the chamber in around this area knew that. It was like, wow, Matt has a big set of shoes to fill. And what kind of steps do you believe would set you up to end up in a role like that you have a big set to fill?
Yeah, and I have to say it. I wear a size 10. He probably wears a size 15 or 16. He's 6'6". I certainly am not. So I always have to get that in there. I know it's a dad joke, but I'm a dad now, so I can say that.
There you go.
Yeah. So I think that, as I mentioned, having being born and raised in Duluth gives me a great and deep passion for our area, but also having a family that comes from the range gives me kind of a broader perspective on what it means to be a regional hub like Duluth is, and the importance and interconnectedness of all of us in St. Louis County, because sometimes there can be that north and south divide. And really, for all of us to thrive, we need to work together. So that was an element of it also. And then going through school and going through my career with grandmas, it deepened my passion for what business can provide to communities. And it's not just that it provides products and services, it provides jobs to communities, which give people confidence and the means to support their family. It provides revenues to the city so that the city can do the important work that they need to do. And without a thriving economy, without thriving businesses, that's when we see cities end up turning out the lights. And so to really see the importance from different perspectives of what business means to people. Another example acutely was during the pandemic when we had to lay off a lot of people at grandma's. When they got laid off, you really saw individuals' confidence take a hit. You saw insecurity set in, and that was such an unfortunate thing that took place. And so having a thriving business community is so important for a variety of reasons. And my passion for that has grown through some of these different steps that I've taken. Running concurrent to that has been a love of this community. And I think service to this community was instilled in me by my parents, who have been involved in a number of boards and commissions and groups over the years. And so that was something that I grew up with, and that was normal for me. And so when I had the opportunity early in my professional career to start joining some nonprofit boards or community organizations, I wanted to get into that. And in doing that, I didn't run the other direction. I found that I really enjoyed balancing the work in business with improving the community through work on boards such as the YMCA or the Lake Superior Marine Museum, the Canal Park Business Association we mentioned, and groups like that. And so my love of business is growing, and my love of community and having community impact is growing. And then in 2015, 2016, I was fortunate to be able to join the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors here. And that really was the perfect intersection of business and economic transactors and industry and community development. I mean, the chamber is a landing spot for those things. And so served on the board and had the opportunity to serve as board chair. And was just thrilled that I even had that opportunity, but thought that, my experience with the chamber would end with my board service and I would move on. I had a great job with Grandmas, and Grandmas is an organization that gives you the latitude to be able to be involved in the community, and I appreciated that. But then my predecessor, who left an amazing legacy of leadership here in this community, announced his retirement. And all of a sudden, something that I wasn't expecting at that time became a reality, and that was that this position was open. And in the snap of my fingers, in the blink of an eye, I all of a sudden realized this would be my dream job. And so went home and had a conversation with my wife, who basically said to me, "I can't believe you're only thinking about this now. This is the perfect job for you. Go for it." And so all of these things kind of led up to this moment. And I don't know, Tom, why I was so fortunate or so lucky to find myself in that position. And I understand that as a part of that equation, there is preparation for it. And I take great pride in having worked hard to get here. But I don't know how I got so lucky to be in the right place at the right time. And so put my heart and soul into the 3-month interview and application process, and met with the board many times, and was very fortunate to be selected to lead this. And the first day that I sat down in the office, I had to pinch myself because I just couldn't believe that it was true. And from there, it's just been the most fulfilling and rewarding, challenging and inspiring couple of months that I could have ever imagined. And every day, you hear people say it, every day I wake up and I'm excited to come into work. I've heard you say that yourself. And that's such a fortunate thing to be blessed with. So that's a little bit about kind of what led me here.
When it doesn't feel like work, when it feels like going and playing on the playground, there's something right happening there. And it's funny, I had a whole list of questions to ask you here on that, on getting to that position, such as the importance of networking and the importance of learning during your career and advice for young adults. Well, you just gave all of that right there. So that was a great segue into our next part is Matt, tell us what a typical day looks like now that you're up and running in your role. And I'm not going to call it new role anymore. That's behind us. This is your role. This is your baby. What's a typical day look like?
Thank you. And I do want to add one other thought that came to mind about preparing for something like this, and advice that I would give anybody. And that's that if you see an opportunity out there, keep your eyes open for opportunity. And if you see an opportunity out there, go for it. Believe in yourself, because so often we can find ourselves in the trap of overthinking something, getting analysis paralysis, thinking, man, I can't check every single box off on this list. And the reality is, before you take on that opportunity, whatever that is, whether that's in your career or whether that's in your personal life or within a community organization, until you set foot in there and start experiencing it, nobody can check everything off that list. And if you have passion for it, and if you have enthusiasm for it, and a good work ethic, sometimes that can take you very far. So if there is an opportunity that you see out there, go for it. Believe in yourself. And so talking about a typical day in my role, and one of the things that I absolutely love so much about this is no 2 days are the same. There are some similarities, certainly, but no 2 days are the same. And so, right now, what a lot of my days consist of are I'm trying to do about 2 stakeholder meetings per day, which when I first mentioned that, it seems like a lot to people, but I find so much energy in connecting with people. And it's been so helpful for me as I report to my board about strategic directions that we want to take. And so those stakeholders might be one of our many members. It might be elected officials at the local, state, or even federal level. We met with Senator Klobuchar when she was here yesterday for the Essentia topping. It might be other chamber groups. I've met with the Minnesota Chamber many times. They've got a great team there under Doug Loon, the United States Chamber. And so connecting with all of those groups is inspiring, it's energizing, and it's so informative. It's such an important part of the work. And so that was something I wanted to jump into right away. So on a typical day, I would have, at some point in time, there are a couple meetings with stakeholders. Not every single one of those is a 2-hour lunch where we solve the world's problems, so to speak, or try to.
Sure.
Some of those might just be a 30-minute phone call or something like that. And then from there, it kind of depends on where we are at in the time of the month and where we're at on our kind of calendar of activities. From the day that I started at the end of July through the end of October, it's a very busy time for our organization where we are welcoming on new board members. So a day might include doing new board member orientations. We also in there completed our operating budget for 2022. We put together a new strategic plan for next year, and we actually, instead of doing it how we had previously done it, we put together a strategic matrix, which kind of lays out our priorities with a little bit more clarity. We were preparing for big annual events like our Golf Classic this summer, our annual dinner, as you mentioned, at the end of October. And so I couldn't tell you what a typical day looks like because the only thing that's consistent there is inconsistency. And no matter what day it is, a new email will come in asking for some advocacy from a member, or a new article will come out that impacts our business community, and we need to strategize around that. And so one of the things to maintain a level of communication with our members that we did this fall was put out a business conditions survey. We wanted to see, understanding that in business, every industry has its own unique challenges. Every business has its own unique challenges depending on things like how many employees you have, where you're at in the life cycle of your business, how big your revenues are, where your target market is for your products or services. But there would be some themes that would emerge from a survey like that that would allow us to be informed strategically. And so we put a lot of work into that, and that was something that on a daily basis we would be monitoring and sorting through that data. A lot of go ahead.
Matt, let me ask you a couple things. One is, I think you're very well positioned because of your experiences for a day to day that and I was quite certain that your answer to that question was every day to day is very different, which makes it challenging, which makes it good.
Yeah.
And I think your history has set you up very well for that. But also you talk about the communication part of it. And I know that as a business, as a small business, that's one of the things that we look so forward to, and we're looking so forward to with you, is because there's the communication between the community, the communication between business to business. We all have, and you said it, we all have our own challenges, big or small businesses. We all have our own, and they're unique to us, but to us, there are big challenges. And we lean on you, and we try to lean on the other business community to help us through some of those experiences. So what is the biggest challenge that you see as a whole going forward for not only your role, because we come to you as those eyes and ears and our cheerleader for our businesses, but for each individual business, big or small? What do you see the biggest challenges out there for us?
Sure. Well, I'll say a couple that I don't think will come as any surprise, and then I'll share a challenge that we actively began working on immediately once we saw it emerge as a theme. So some that won't come as a surprise, that are big challenges that a lot of organizations are working on because they're big, complex challenges. Continued recovery efforts around pandemic relief and support. And that comes in many different forms. It comes in providing information sometimes. As the court system works through the vaccine mandate and how that's going to end up, we want to make sure that we're providing members with accurate information on that so they know what they need to do there. As new streams of relief funds or grants become available, we want to make sure that our members are aware of that. So certainly until we get a grasp on this pandemic, and every time it feels like we have a grasp on it, then something changes. And some of that is due to politics at the federal level. Some of it's due to a very difficult public health issue with the pandemic. So that will remain a challenge. Workforce, we talked about it earlier, remains a challenge for all of our businesses, regardless of the industry. Our largest employer, Essentia Health, has 1,400 open positions right now. St. Luke's isn't far behind that. I did a membership meeting with a couple different members that are involved in the design and build community. They have many, many open positions. We talked about restaurants. They weren't able to be open to full hours. And so that is a critical challenge that we need to start working on. We need to get people who have taken themselves out of the labor force, meaning they're not actively looking for work. We need to re-engage them into the labor force. We need to do a better job of retaining college graduates when they are done with school in the area and connect them with jobs here locally. And then we need to start thinking outside of the box and start thinking creatively about other populations of people that might be looking for work within the trades or looking for work within some of the skilled labor jobs that we have available, because those are the backbones of economic development. And so we need to make sure that we're doing a lot of work there. And so workforce, and then as a subset of that, which becomes kind of a chicken and an egg, childcare and housing. So housing, when we're trying to recruit workers to the area. So I'll use Essentia again as an example. I'll also use my friend Marla, who works as the head of HR at St. Luke's. They're trying to recruit nurses and physicians and administrative people to the area to work for our healthcare institutions, which operate as regional hubs, and they can't find housing for them. And so that becomes such a limiting issue to workforce. Equally, childcare. If you work in healthcare or you work in retail or you work in higher education or hospitality and tourism, you don't always need childcare that's 9 to 5. And already we're limited on childcare spots for 9 to 5 jobs, but we don't really have any childcare that operates outside of that. And so that becomes limiting to get people into the labor force. And at a time when everybody kind of did a self-reflection and decided if their career was right for them or not, a lot of people chose to then stay home and be with the kids, which a very noble decision. I mean, our children are our greatest resources, but we also need people in the labor force. So childcare becomes limiting there too. So those are ones that I don't think would surprise anybody.
And manufacturing, I mean, that's what the businesses we're in are manufacturing. And I can tell you, we've been just dying our back order lists keep growing because the simple fact that we can't hire enough people to build products. And I know it's myself, and I'm in a lot of circles with other small manufacturing to medium manufacturing. And, you're talking about the healthcare and the hospitality industry, but it's like every industry, man. It's crazy. And I know we're all leaning and screaming at you to go, Matt, help us. And we'll continue to do that because we do need the help in every single sector, because if any of us think we're in this boat alone, we're not. And we like to yell and scream like we're in the worst position ever, but we're all in it together, and we have to all figure out how to paddle that canoe the same direction and make sure that people know there are good jobs. And I'll be selfish for this part of the country up in northern Minnesota that everybody's looking. So if you want to have a job, move up here and we'll definitely hire you and find jobs for you. And I assume that was going to be the one that you said, okay, this is the easy one. Even though it's hard on business, it was going to be the easy one because it's challenging to everyone right now. Yeah,
no, all of that was perfectly said, Tom. And I think it's an exciting opportunity to work on because, I don't want to, I'll say it and I don't want to say it. It's a good problem to have. And I only say that if we can solve it. If it's this perpetual problem that keeps limiting us, then I don't love it anymore. But it's a good problem because it shows that we have great employers up here. We have a great economy up here. We have industry, we have manufacturing, like you mentioned, aviation, healthcare, higher ed. We've got everything. And then we've got the support services that supplement all of those jobs, like banking and financial and accounting and all those things. So it's a great problem, but we have to solve it. But it's an exciting problem to work on because I think that if we can start to make progress on the issues such as housing, such as childcare, we really can grow this economy like we need to, grow this tax base like we need to, grow the population like we need to, and that can bring Duluth into a great era, maybe its greatest era. We've got some creative ideas out there where there's really no pride in authorship because more and more people are starting to talk about them. Aaron Kelly, who's on my board, he works for LHB, credit where credit's due, has really been promoting an idea that I love as well, and I've been promoting it around commercial property. And because of the pandemic, we're kind of viewing commercial property differently, and we've got some vacancies, and we're not sure, will people need office space like they used to ever again? I'm not sure. They were able to pull some overhead down with technology. We can work more remotely. So we know that we've got some some vacancies and opportunities with commercial property. We also know that we have huge housing needs, but we are a landlocked community that faces a hill, that faces bedrock, that faces water. And so infilling and density is an opportunity there. Could we ever access, whether it's funds at the state, local, or federal level, to pull down the cost per square foot to retrofit commercial properties to provide some housing in dense areas and be able to start, bringing people here to work for industry, to work for manufacturing, to work in all these different sectors that we have opportunities. So I share that because it's an exciting challenge to be able to work on, because if we can solve it, there is a great outcome to that, and that is growth for our economy and growth for our area.
I've said that, Matt, for a while, is that Duluth in our area, and I know it's a lot of growing areas, is the housing, affordable housing for young professionals, young people getting into their careers in no matter what those careers are. It's just cost prohibitive to rent. And there's the homes, obviously we know what the interest rates are, and homes are being sold before they hit the market and all that. For young people, that's there's several that have said, I'd love to live in the area, but where can I afford to actually rent, or where can I afford to buy? And so those are definite, real, tangible issues that we have in the area, and many areas do have as well.
Yep. Yeah, we can't build them fast enough. I've been a part of a couple different events recently. One for luxury high-end housing. There's a waiting list to get in. One for affordable low-income housing. There's a waiting list to get in. One for senior housing. You guessed it. There's a waiting list to get in. And so we need to make sure that we continue to build those projects, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can as a community, as a business community, as a local government, and as residents, to making sure that we can support those projects as they're going through the different phases. We shouldn't make it overly difficult on people. We need it. Let's make it happen. And so if we can solve that, what an exciting thing for this area. Another one that is a critical issue right now that I think businesses want to be involved in doing better here, and that's the equality of opportunity. It comes up time and time again, and it's a space that we need to do more work on. And I think that there's an opportunity there with workforce. So communities of color, minority communities, are unemployed at like 3 or 4 times the rate of Caucasian communities. We need workforce. Let's do what we can to connect there and provide more equality of opportunity. So that's an important one. And then I was talking about one that is more specific, less broad, and one that we jumped on right away, and that is construction services and building permits. And that, some of that ties into housing, some of that ties into economic development. We heard from, at our chamber Let's Do Lunch yesterday, Jason Hale, who works in housing for the city of Duluth, and he's appreciative of our efforts working on construction services and building permits. That has been a legacy challenge in Duluth, where the reality is, over time, different projects have felt it was difficult to work with the city of Duluth to do a construction project, to obtain a building permit, to get through inspections. And then that difficulty has ebbed and flowed a little bit over time, and it's never really been fixed, solved, or improved in perpetuity. And so we're in the business of building relationships and then working to solve problems. And so I had relationships with a lot of people at City Hall from my previous work, and I have immense respect for people who want to work in public service jobs. It's a difficult line of work to be in, and often no matter what you do, you've got somebody criticizing you. So I have immense respect for people in those jobs. And I think if we share the same goal, which is to provide great customer service to the businesses, to the developers, to people who want to do economic things here in this area, we share that goal. Let's do what we can to improve upon it. And so I'm so thrilled that the city has partnered up with us on that. We've already had a couple meetings and have actionable items. And so that's going to be the first phase of that. And then if we can actually make progress there and improve our construction service and building permit process, the next part of that is going to be telling that story, having a narrative around that so that we can erode the lasting stereotype that's out there, the reputation that's out there, because those things linger and those things last. And even if we improve these things, if you and I did a project together 10 years ago and had a bad experience, we wouldn't know that things have changed. So we have to get out there and tell that story to let people know we're open for business. Business is good in Duluth. And so that's one that we've been working on right away. Other kind of challenges that we're facing as a business community right now, we need to make sure we're incentivizing responsible economic development. I think that we as a community underutilize some of the tools that we have there. And we need to make sure that we're connecting people who need mental health services or addiction services with the support that they need while balancing that with safety for our community. I think that has to be a both and we have to do that because it's very unfortunate when we hear that folks don't feel safe in our community, and I don't think any one of us wants to see somebody fall through the cracks. So we need to make sure we're doing both and there, and connecting people with services while creating a safe environment. So,
Matt, you hit on one thing there, and as a small business person, and I talk to a lot of business people around, and it doesn't matter what sector we're in. Sometimes there seems like between any city, whether it's Duluth or any other city you can choose, the business people and the city fathers, if you will, it seems like there's a headbutting match that we just can't get it together and work together for a common good. And from the business side of things, I don't think any of us ever put our hand out and look for handouts. What we try to do is say, hey, make progress easier for us. And one of the things you hit on there was you said the word communication, you said the word relationship building, and using you as a common thread for those two things between business and city, so that we're not butting heads all the time. I'm really excited to hear that, for the simple fact that we always feel like from a business community that the city's working against us, that we don't matter, even though we're employing people and we're doing everything we can to employ more people and educate people and train people. And then, hey, the city just is like, well, whatever. And to hear that, the communication, and to hear about relationship building, I can tell you, for me alone, is really exciting. And this is near and dear to me on this podcast because I live in this community and I own businesses in this community. How can residents, Matt, how can they help and grow and improve the city, even though the residents may not be tied directly to the Chamber of Commerce? What would be some of your advice for residents on how they can help?
That's such an insightful question. And so to answer that, I'm going to say a statement that I've said in a couple different communications pieces. And I think that it's such an important thing to be repeated. My goal as the leader of the chamber is going to be to create an environment where business is good in Duluth, where business is good for Duluth. We need great businesses such as Duluth Pack who are trying to do the right things, employ people the right way, be responsible corporate citizens, where business is good for Duluth, and where business is good because of Duluth. And when I say that last one, business is good because of Duluth, I'm kind of directing that at the community, at the residents, because they hold such a big part of creating great business conditions and allowing our community to grow economically and grow our population. But Duluthians, we are a tough bunch because I think at times we can be a bit parochial in Duluth. We love to be able to say, and I said it at the top, I love to be able to say I'm born and raised in Duluth. And you go to any speaking engagement, and people either feel the need to share that and celebrate that, which I love being able to do, or they feel the need to say, I've only been in Duluth for 10 years. I know that I can't say that I was born and raised. And so I think we need to kind of open up the idea that it's okay if you're not from Duluth. We want to grow Duluth. And with that, I think Duluthians as a whole want the right things for the community. But I don't always think that they want to see our community. I don't think everybody wants to see our community grow. And that can be a challenging thing when you're trying to create economic development. If you ever have attended a city council meeting where a new development is on the agenda, residents often are there complaining about it. And it's because they want to protect their neighborhood. They don't want to see any more density there and things like that. But then at the same time, we all go to social media and complain about property tax levy increases. And so there's a Venn diagram there where the center of that just doesn't exist. We can't keep our property taxes down, continue to provide the services that we need provided, and not have growth. And so when we talk about communication and we talk about building relationships and we talk about educating, I think the chamber certainly plays an important role with that with local government. And I've been so thrilled that weekly I've met with the city council president, because one of the problems that has taken place over time is that the city is going to go, the city or the city council is going to go and do something, and the business community isn't aware of it, whether that's our fault or it's not our fault. We're not aware of it. And so we show up at the second reading of an ordinance and we start pounding our fist on the table saying, how can you do this to us? And so that need to have constant dialogue and communication about, hey, here's an idea that we think that you should do, or here's an idea that we think that you should steer clear of. So having that constant open communication, that also needs to happen with administration and businesses. And then that has to happen with our community and with our residents to say, look, here's the reality of it. If we really want Duluth to grow and we don't want to have stagnant population, here are some of the things that we're going to have difficult conversations about and come to terms with. And that's the need to look at density and look at some infilling. And I think we can do that in a responsible way where quality of life is maintained. I don't think that that's going to be an issue for us. We've got an extremely robust unified development code. And so I think we're good there, but we have to, as residents, say, you know what, when a new project wants to come to my area, I'm going to embrace that and I'm going to support that and be okay with that. And so I think that as residents, that's something that we need to kind of look internally about and come to terms with a growth strategy and an economic development strategy. Because short of that, we're going to run out of spaces that we can put things and drop things into. So another exciting thing to be involved in will be those conversations with our community and with our residents.
Matt, so how would you suggest we go, and this is going to be a tough question, how do you suggest when you have the business community, you have the community as a whole, you have the city of Duluth, you have the Chamber of Commerce, so there's four there. When something is coming up and we agree, how do we agree to disagree? Because with social media these days, it's so easy to, I don't agree with that, I'm just going to throw you under the bus, and maybe I don't have the whole story, but I'm going to throw you under the bus anyway.
And so often with that, we're given false choices. We're forced to choose between two things that are incredibly black and white and absolute. And oftentimes there's a way where we can find some compromise and some middle ground if we're willing to get together and collaborate. But with social media, there is no middle ground. It is absolutes, and it is either you are right or you are wrong. And so that is part of that challenge, and that's a difficult question to answer. But I think the first part of that is in having relationships with each other and being able to establish some norms and ground rules with those relationships. For example, whomever the city council president is, as the leader of the chamber, I want to have a great relationship with that person. And I want us to be able to identify right away. We might not always agree about things, but we need to continue to work together and continue to get back together with each other in order for us to accomplish what we both want to accomplish at the end of the day, which is to make Duluth better and more prosperous for everybody. And so I think the first way that we can address that challenge is to have relationships with each other. And I think another big part of that is to identify that in a community like Duluth that was old industrial and has now found revitalization through economic diversity, but we have challenges like landlocked and bedrock, and we haven't grown as much as maybe some of the other communities. These aren't going to be easy things to answer. They're complex challenges. And so what it's going to take is compromise. There isn't going to be one absolute way to fix challenges that are this complex in our community. And so I think it's relationships. I think it's an acknowledgement of the complexity of things. And with that complexity comes the need to compromise and not deal in absolutes and false choices. And then I think the last part of it is don't read comments on social media. I think that would make us all healthier individuals mentally.
Hey, Matt, you don't have to worry about me because I have no social media.
Smart man. You are a smart man.
Well, I'm an old man and I can't keep up with the updates, so I just get rid of it. So, one of the questions, and I think you just answered the majority of this one, is in your position, you could be put between a rock and a hard place at a lot of times, and I know your predecessor probably felt the same, and that is that tightrope walk of politics, being the leader of the business community and dealing with the mayor, dealing with the city council as a whole. How do you walk that tightrope?
Yeah, and we work a lot with the county board as well, and even some of our state electeds. And so there is a tightrope to be walked every single day. But a theme is emerging here. One of the conversations that I had with some of our local and state electeds is that we agreed that we will always be respectful with each other, and that before we go and make a comment to the media, or before we go and do an interview with the newspaper, that we will have discussed things between each other and understood the position that we will be taking. And so first, it's communicating with each other and seeing, is there a shared solution here? And if not, well, I want to be clear with you. Here's the position that I'm taking, and here's why I'm taking that position. It's not because I don't like you personally. It's not because I don't like you as an individual or respect the work that you're doing. But my position and my charge and the mission and vision and core values that my organization has leads me to this. And so here's the position that I'm going to take. We respectfully disagree, and I can't wait until the next time we get together to discuss the next thing. And so I think there's no perfect way to walk that trapeze line, but that's the best way to do it. And it's through having a respectful relationship. And that has to be formed before we start to get to these really difficult, challenging issues. It can't happen after that. It can't, after the fact, be like, hey, and now, we need to have a professional working relationship. It has to be beforehand. And some really, really great things can come from that. If we look back in some of the political history books, if you will, great bipartisan compromise was happening all the time. You have small but extremely loud groups on both ends of the spectrum, and you've got primarily everybody then in the center of things. We can still make that happen. But to do that, we have to put in the work on the front end to form relationships, to understand each other, to respect each other, and know that there will be times that we agree and there will be times that we disagree, and that is okay, and that's healthy, actually. And so I think that's the best way that we can walk that fine line.
One last question about business, then we'll get into some fun stuff here, Matt, is what are some of the Duluth Area Chamber of Commerce resources that are available to we, the business people? Because I think a lot of us are like, oh, we're a member of the chamber, we pay our dues, but there are a ton of resources. What are some of those resources that maybe we don't know about or we don't even think about?
You're absolutely right. And on a lot of the business retention and expansion and engagement visits that I'm doing, that's one of the things that I want to remind people of, because a chamber like ours, which is considered a fully built chamber, we are the second biggest traditional chamber in the state, and one that has arguably some of the most influence within the state. We offer so much, but it's one of those things that you have to use what we offer to be able to get value out of it. So we offer, we've talked a lot about it today, advocacy and policy efforts. We do that down at the state level. We do that at the city level. We advocate on behalf of members all the time. Weekly, I am writing letters of support for individual businesses when they have something going on, or even broader coalitions. And we have committees like our Military Affairs Committee that specifically supports the economic impact of the 148th. They have an economic impact annually of $100 million a year. They employ 400 people full-time, 1,100 people total. So we have those advocacy and policy efforts that members can tap into. We have a leadership program that is very highly thought of We have 52 students this year in that leadership program. It's a resume builder, it's a networking builder, a chance to learn a lot more about Duluth and everything that we have going on. We have a young professionals program that pre-pandemic had huge numbers attending events. The pandemic was really hard on young professionals in general, and specifically on young professional programs. But we still see great turnout. We had a recent Fuse is what we call that group, a recent Fuse event at Kitchigami Club that we had a great turnout for. We have beyond that, a huge amount of networking programming. And what I tell people about networking when they're wondering what the chamber can do for them is, don't go to one networking event and expect that your black book of business will exponentially grow. Networking is something that you have to put time into, so that when, if I'm in insurance and all of a sudden somebody's ready to switch their insurance provider, they think of Matt because I've been at those events, I've built relationships with them. So we offer a wide dearth of networking programming. We offer educational programming, both in a regular series of professional development of Small Business Alliance. We're going to be doing policy and advocacy educational programming next year. So great opportunities there. We also offer on acute issues that come up, forums, such as when we do our candidate forums before elections. And so that's a chance for our members to be educated on candidates that might fit what their values are or help their business. We have a ton of marketing and sponsorship opportunities. We have more free marketing opportunities than many people realize. And we have to continue to remind people, like, we can do this for you. We help people with, when you have job postings, we will help you post those jobs postings. We do free press releases for members. We have an annual series of large events that kind of pull all those things together in one as well. So a ton of things like that. We do ribbon cuttings, not just when you first open the business, but anytime you have something special going on. We bring our ambassadors there. So we offer an ambassador program. I could continue to go on, Tom, but anything that a business needs, no matter where their life cycle is, I believe we can do something to advance their business and grow their business.
So, Matt, how do they get a hold of the Chamber of Commerce to talk to your staff about, hey, I was wondering if there's a resource for this or that, if they just don't know?
Sure. Maybe the easiest way would be to call us here at the Chamber, or they could send an email to inquiry@duluthchamber.com. We're easy to find online. If you search Duluth Chamber through your favorite search engine, will pop up right away. And we've got the staff that I have here, Tom, I'd be remiss if I didn't take some time to mention them, because one of the great things about stepping into this role is, yes, there are big challenges that align with everything that I love to do, that I'm excited about diving into. But if there wasn't a great staff here, I wouldn't have the luxury of being able to dive into that, because I would be working operationally on building a staff. Martha Bremer leads our Leadership Duluth and Fuse programs. They're award-winning programs. Kathleen Prevette has been our longest tenured employee at 10 years. She does all of the large events that we do, and they're fantastic. She also provides a lot of board support for us. Chris Johnson had been with the Chamber for a long time, left, got her Master of Business Administration, now came back to us as our Director of Communications and Marketing, and she's helping me with some policy communication pieces that we've been putting out, we'll continue to put out. Aubrey Hagan is our Director of Membership and Retention Development, and she's been able to add new members and sustain our membership at a 90% rate at a time when other chambers are down in the 60s. And so I can't say enough about her. And then we just had Lori Steinbach, who had spent 22 years at Visit Duluth, join us as our office coordinator. And so she's somebody who knows everybody in this community. And so for the person that's answering the phone and greeting at the door, she knows everybody. And so having a great staff like that allows me to do the work that I think is so critical for our business community right now, because I think that we're at a tipping point. We have more opportunities in the Duluth region than I think any other region in the state, and maybe even in the Midwest. But we have these big challenges, and we have to bridge that divide. I think the Chamber is the right organization to lead that. But if we don't do that, we'll fall back the other direction. If we can do that, we will move into this incredible era for Duluth. It'll take difficult conversations, no doubt about it. With, like I said, local government, with businesses, we need businesses to embrace competition. We need businesses to believe that the pie can grow. Sometimes some of the entrepreneurs that I interact with have fallen in the trap of not believing that the pie can grow, but of just protecting market share. I think we need to believe the pie can grow and embrace competition. And then, like we said, maybe the most difficult group, because they care so much about Duluth, because strengths can be weaknesses. That passion about Duluth sometimes limits residents' ability to see growth and what that looks like. So a wonderful staff here that allows the work to be done by myself, and the board of directors that I have is unbelievable. Our board chair, Dan Fanning, has worked in private business for big companies in New York. He's worked now in higher education. He's been in the military. He's a combat veteran. He's the most strategic person I've ever met. He's 5 steps ahead. And it's like, you got to keep up with him. And so it's an incredibly fortunate time for the chamber. And I think the best way to reach us would be contacting our staff through either email or phone. And the best way to find us, do a quick search of Duluth Area Chamber of Commerce.
Matt, I got to tell you a quick story. So
Please.
On one of our podcasts, we had Sean Nelson, CEO of Cirrus Aircraft, one of the biggest employers in the area here. And when he first came to town and was new to town, he was asked, hey, would you like to speak at a chamber event? And he said, oh, sure. He was telling us this, and he's like, yeah, sure, no big deal, thinking that it's a small little chamber event because a lot of towns, their chambers are pretty small. And he thought, oh, there's going to be 15 or 20 people there. And literally a couple days prior to, Bill King, one of his employees, told him, you do realize there's going to be 1,200 people there, do you not? And he's like, there's going to be what? And there was no backing out at that time. So quite a fun story, because I remember Sean was new to town when he was the keynote speaker at the annual gala. So Matt, let's switch gears here. We're going to take a little breather and we're going to get into you just as a person a little bit, not chamber. What's Matt's favorite hobby?
Spending time with my family would be up there. I've got 2 young kids who force me to be present and in the moment, because if I'm not in the moment, something will go wrong. Somebody will get bumped or hurt. So spending time with them, it also is a refreshing thing to view the eyes through the lens of a child, when oftentimes at work we're addressing challenges or maybe an issue that has bubbled up. To be able to spend time with kids who see everything through such fun and fresh eyes is wonderful. Also, they don't take no for an answer. What a good lesson to learn when you're in business. Kids don't take no for an answer. Also, kids forgive so quickly. Something happens and the next thing you know, they're best friends again. And so spending time with my kids. I love spending time with my wife as well. She's my best friend. We love to do all of the Duluth outdoor things that we have the luxury of enjoying. And I love outdoor exercise. So whether it's winter, spring, summer, or fall, I love being outside and doing things like that.
Perfect. By the way, this is called the packed question segment.
Okay.
What's your biggest fear, Matt?
Let's unpack these things. My biggest fear. Boy. I don't want to go too dark here, but I think my biggest fear would be probably 2 things. One, not being able to spend enough time with my kids. And I mean that in the sense of on a weekly basis, not being able to spend enough time with them, but also on the terminal basis of, I hope to be alive for a long time, to be a part of my kids' lives. I've gotten to experience that with my parents, where now I get to see them as grandparents. I really hope that I am fortunate enough and healthy enough to have that exist. On the week-to-week basis, that's the challenge of work and life balance, and something that for sure I have more control over. So those things. And then I think another fear would be not leaving a lasting legacy and being forgotten. And I think that would be something that on a daily basis, trying to do things that are impactful and that are positive and that can leave an impact.
I don't think you're going to have to worry about that fear too much, Matt. Last one, Matt, favorite movie?
Sandlot, no question.
There you go. Folks, today this has been an incredible journey that we've had with Matt Baumgartner, president of the Duluth Area Chamber of Commerce. Matt, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate all of your insight. We are looking forward to the future with you. I think people have gotten a heck of a lot of great information from you on whether they live in this area or a different part of the country, what the chambers are actually there for. So we thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Tom, and thank you to the Duluth Pack team for everything that you do in this area. It was fun for me to be able to answer questions from you because I've been a part of settings where people are asking you questions as an esteemed leader in this community. So to have the tables flipped was fun. So thank you very much to you and your team.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you. We appreciate it. And folks, until next time, unplug from the indoors and recharge in the outdoors. Doors, 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 doors.